Girl, like, I don't know what those mean.
I understand. It's a lot. The federal government especially is into their alphabet soup.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hard to keep up with, but
It's
I
a lot.
appreciate you.
No problem.
Hey, y'all.
On.
Hello.
Hey,
Good to see y'all.
you too.
One minute from air, the live stream has started. I will give you a 30-second cue. At that time, the open will run, and then I will give you we are live.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. How's it going?
Hey, Charlie.
I am in my car, airport parking deck, because I have to leave at about 3:40 to get on a plane. So, but here I am.
Thank you.
Hard at work, trying to get my orientation right. You doing all right today, Mayor Neal?
I'm doing well. I hope you are.
I have no complaints.
Good.
30 seconds.
Recording in progress.
We are live.
Good afternoon, everybody in the Bull City. Happy Thursday from Durham, North Carolina. And we would like to call the Durham City Council work session to order for this, the 24th day of February of the year 2022 at 1 p.m. We certainly want to welcome all of you who have joined us here today. And I am going to ask our Madam Clerk to please call the roll.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mayor O'Neill.
I am here.
Mayor Pro Tempore Middleton.
I am here.
Councilmember Caballero has an excused absence for today. Councilmember Freeman.
Present.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Reese.
I am here for my last work session as a member of the Durham City Council.
Okay. And Councilmember Williams.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll now turn our attention to our announcements for this afternoon. If any of my colleagues have any announcements, you may have the floor. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good afternoon, colleagues, friends, and to all of our residents and citizens who are watching and all interested parties watching this afternoon, our work session. Madam Mayor, later today, Chief Andrews will come before us and give us a crime report, and that'll give us opportunity to talk about the very important issue of gun violence going on in our city. But I did want to just take a few moments to reflect, and Councilor Reese has mentioned that this is his last work session today. And of course, our work session is an opportunity for us to do deep dives and to really examine the issues that come before this council before we vote on them. And I think that a large part of Councilmember Reese's multifaceted legacy will be the level of preparation and thoroughness he's always brought to these times together. So I just want to acknowledge that today and pay homage to him and indeed say that he has set the bar very high. Won't get the chance to, I don't know if we'll get a chance to talk much at our last council meeting, but every meeting he attends now will be his last as an elected council member. So I did want to mark today as this being a space where I think he did some of his best work, and much of his work will be unheralded, we won't know about in terms of his interaction with constituents, but he certainly was on fleek here in the work session. Interestingly enough, that also provides an on-ramp, because one of the things that part of our portfolios that Councilmember Reese and I shared was being representatives to our sister cities program. As we know, Durham is an international city. People from all over the world come here to study, to be healed, to work. Our RTP is one of the most renowned places for scientists and business worldwide. And we have a lot of folk here that are from Ukraine. We have students that come and study here from Ukraine. This afternoon, Madam Mayor, our hearts and solidarity go out to our residents and citizens here who have folk in Ukraine. As an American elected official, I oftentimes reflect on our particular iteration of democracy here in the United States. And I tell you, I've woken up many a morning concerned about the state of our democracy, and I have fears about it, concerns about it. But none of those fears are predicated upon foreign troops marching through Durham. None of those fears are predicated upon amphibious vehicles landing foreign soldiers at Wrightsville Beach or taking over the port of Wilmington. For us, it will be internal. And whether it's a blessing or a curse because of military might, America is pretty much exempted from what we're seeing going on in Europe. But we do have to safeguard our democracy from internal dangers. But today, our heart goes out to those who haven't seen this type of violence on the European continent since World War II. So we just want to let our residents and citizens know who hail from Ukraine, students who are here visiting and studying from Ukraine, those who have family members back there, that we pray with you. When the time comes and if this level of violence is as historically, it goes the way these things have gone historically, there will be many people in need, there will be many refugees, and of course, Durham always leads in terms of cities that send help and stand ready to receive folk and help folk in these hurtful and hard times. So I just want to let our residents and citizens know, particularly as a city who has so many international folk here, and a city that prides ourselves on our Sister Cities program. We don't have one in Ukraine, but perhaps we will in the future. But we just want to let those folk know that our prayers are with you and we stand with you at this time. God bless the people of Ukraine. God bless America. God bless Durham. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for those remarks. Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to take a moment to use this space to correct some misinformation that's been circulating in the community since yesterday, when WRAL published an inaccurate and misleading headline about Durham Housing Authority's plans for McDougal Terrace, stating that the complex would be torn down and residents would have to leave by the end of the year. This was completely irresponsible and has unnecessarily panicked a lot of folks in our community. The article online and the headline have been updated, and some quotes from Mayor Pro Tem Mark Anthony Middleton have been included to give some context for what's going on. DHA also held a press conference at 11 a.m. this morning to correct the record on this issue. But I also just wanted to take advantage of this time to reassure the community that there are no plans to tear down McDougal Terrace. The Housing Authority has until the end of the year to submit a plan to HUD for how to manage issues there moving forward. And it is my hope that that there will be substantial redevelopment of the property, that this will actually provide better quality and more affordable housing for Durham residents, similar to what's happening with the DHA properties. McDougal Terrace provides over 300 affordable homes to our residents, and nobody in our community wants to lose that resource. But we also know that the path that we're on, continuing to make repairs as they arise in these older complexes, is not a long-term solution. And so McDougal Terrace, along with lots of other Durham Housing Authority properties, are going to need substantial attention, substantial redevelopment over the coming years. But we are dedicated to keeping those homes in our community for residents to be able to access. And that is the path that we will pursue: the preservation of affordable housing on that site. And we're hopeful that the developments that are happening in downtown to renovate and redevelop the DHA properties in downtown will also, that the same process will be able to be used on other properties in the city. In fact, DHA is already has already made done some of the initial steps to get the permissions to convert those properties. So I just wanted to again reassure the community, we are very committed to affordable housing here in Durham. Durham Housing Authority is committed to continuing to provide as much public housing as possible. And we will absolutely continue to be transparent with the community as the process moves forward so that everybody knows what's going on. And I'm happy to answer any questions or talk to folks or to refer them to relevant staff at DHA if anyone has further concerns. Thank you.
Thank you for those remarks. And I would again echo and ditto everything Councilwoman Johnson said. I actually was one of the signers of the agreement. It has been reviewed by city officials as well before I signed. The chair of the Durham Housing Authority Board of Directors also signed, and also CEO Anthony Scott. And there is nothing, NOTHING, in that agreement that says that McDougal, the Mac, as we call it in Durham, the Mac will be torn down. It's not gonna happen. We wanna renovate it, hopefully, and make it better. And I think everybody would like to see that done, but nah, that's not in that agreement. Thank you. Councilman Reese, and then Councilman Williams.
Thank you, Mayor O'Neill. I want to thank you and Councilmember Johnson for making sure that accurate information gets out to the folks in the community, especially our neighbors in McDougal Terrace. I know some of the early press reports were pretty frightening, and have heard a number of concerned residents speaking out about their community. And I just wanted to say to those folks and everybody in Durham that this council and this city administration have been foursquare behind the residents of McDougal Terrace. We have made as a city historic investments in McDougal Terrace in recent years, far greater than almost any other city has made in public housing communities across the country in recent memory. Typically, what you see in cities is cities and administrations trying to distance themselves from their local public housing communities. But in Durham, we've seen exactly the opposite. We have embraced our public housing communities. We have embraced our housing authority and worked with them to solve problems. We will continue to do that. And I appreciate, again, Mayor O'Neill and Councilmember Johnson, your comments today to make sure that residents know that we are going to do everything in our power to preserve that community and make sure, as Mayor O'Neill said, that we rebuild, renovate, redevelop, but always with an eye to the needs of the folks who are living there now who so desperately need the housing that is provided at McDougal Terrace. Second thing I wanted to say just briefly is just to piggyback off of the Mayor Pro Tem's remarks about Ukraine. As I explained not too long ago, hold on just a moment. As I explained not too long ago, our family business recently bought a company that's located in Europe. It's in Eastern Europe, and our newly international business now has a number of employees in Ukraine. My wife, our CEO, Dr. Laura Helms-Reese, has been on the phone all morning, making sure that our employees are safe, that they have the resources they need to keep themselves and their families safe. And I just wanted to say that our family and the entire city of Durham is thinking about the folks in Ukraine and hoping that international pressure can be continued to put to bear to put an end to this awful Russian aggression in the heart of Europe. So that was that. The third thing I wanted to say is just, again, to mention that this is my last work session. It's been, as the Mayor Pro Tem said, work sessions have been an opportunity for me to get into the very nitty-gritty details of the agenda items that come before us. In the vast majority of cases, the items that are pulled for review, or that I've pulled for review, have passed directly onto the consent agenda with no further debate on Monday nights, which I think is a testament to our staff's unerring ability to be prepared to answer the annoying questions that I am always prepared to ask at our work sessions. So we'll get into some of those items today, but for all of the staffers who have presented to us, who have endured my questioning over the last 6 years, who don't get a chance to feel that today, I just wanted to say for myself, thank you so much for your service to the people of Durham. We're the ones that talk a lot and unfortunately get in the paper and on TV a lot, but it's the employees of the city of Durham who are the key to our success. They are the reason why we are acclaimed and praised across the world for our administration. And they are the ones who often have to put up with me either asking annoying questions at work sessions or sending them emails, often at uncomfortable times. And so I just wanted to say thank you on my behalf for how much you have helped me be a better council member and how much the work that you do truly matters for the people of our city. And that's all I had, Mayor Neal. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Councilman Reese. Councilman Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I actually, some of the comments have already been made. I think probably all of our phones blew up when, the news story came out about McDougal Terrace. And thank you, Councilmember Johnson, for addressing that. And actually during the press conference today, it was highlighted quite vigorously on making sure that the story is right. So thanks for addressing that. The other thing was Ukraine. When I was a teacher, I had a group of students that were in my classroom at Southern Durham High School who were from Ukraine. And they were here on an exchange program, and they wanted to stay here and go to college. Some of them did, some went back to Ukraine, and some of them are in Ukraine right now. So I've been watching this story extremely closely, and it's quite emotional when you are, we have such a luxury here in America, but to watch a sovereign nation just, be taken over. So that I just hope we all will, just keep a close eye on that and just appreciate what we have here. But let's send our hopes and prayers to the safety of the folks over in Ukraine. As Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem stated, we have quite the diverse community here, and many of folks from Ukraine are here in Durham or in the Triangle. But the other thing is, I know there's a lot of complex information out there around COVID and how it's harming our city. And I do not want that to go unnoticed. I do not want this to be just another cycle of sensation. Our local businesses are hurting bad. And when you speak with our health department, what you're going to hear is we still recommend masks simply because of our caseload right now, and just erring on the side of caution. But you also hear we are not saying don't go out. What you're hearing is get vaccinated, get boosted, wear your mask, but go out and support our local community. I want to re-highlight that. Please go out and support local. Support our local economy. Because we have so many other issues that we're dealing with right now, between the housing crisis, between the public safety matters. This is something, it's kind of like a silent killer, when the local economy falls through. We're trying to preserve, affordable housing, we're trying to preserve our local culture. Please keep a close eye on it. It's extremely, extremely serious. And you may not see it before you, but, in a matter of months, when you lose your favorite small local businesses, you're going to be looking around saying, what happened? So please, please, please do what you're supposed to do. Be safe, be responsible, get vaccinated, get boosted, wear your mask if you have to, and please go out and support our local economy. It is a dire situation right now. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Councilman Williams. Are there any further announcements? I just want to offer a brief moment of silence for the people of Ukraine, if we could. Just incredible. Who would have ever thought that we will wake up to a war? Let's always remember the freedoms that we have. They can never, ever be taken for granted. I also want to highlight the support that our local businesses need in this time. It's dire for them. As Councilman Williams stated, we're still in the middle of a pandemic, but you're still able to go out and support them. You can do it via takeouts, anything that you can, and all things that you can do to help would be greatly appreciated. by all of us, because we have local businesses who support us as well. You know, they make it happen. They're the largest employee. Those small businesses, that's the largest employee in Durham. So I encourage you, keep your mask on, get your vax, get boosted, and go buy local. Go and support these, especially downtown Durham businesses. I like just to highlight them. Please come downtown, come and buy a hamburger, some pizza, whatever you can. Retail, all of it. They need your help. We need your help. And finally, if we could give him a standing ovation. Charlie, can you put your camera back on? We can't give you a standing ovation that you can see, but we can raise hands in the air. Yes, so job well done. Job well done. All right, as Charlie would say, we're now down to the people's business. And our first order of business is to recognize our city manager for any priority items she may have.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor O'Neill, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, and members of the Durham City Council. I do have for you this afternoon 2 priority items. Agenda item number 14, the police satisfaction survey results. Attachment number 2 has been updated, and that will be a presentation lasting approximately 15 minutes. And finally, agenda item number 18, which is the appointment of finance officer. That supplemental item has been added to your work session agenda. That is all I have for today.
Madam Mayor,
Sorry, I was on mute. You have now heard the manager's priority items. I am now ready to entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All right. It has been moved by Councilmember Freeman and seconded by Councilman Williams that we approve the manager's priority items. Madam Clerk, if you call the roll.
Mayor O'Neill,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Middleton,
I vote aye.
Councilmember Freeman,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Reese,
Aye.
and Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Thank you.
Right, the ayes have it, and the motion passes unanimously. I will now recognize our city attorney for any priority items.
good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, and members of the Durham City Council. It's good to see you. The City Attorney's Office does have one priority item today, and that is for the council. It's a request for the council to hold a closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143, 318.11A3 for attorney-client consultation. The cases on which the Attorney's Office would like to consult with the council are the City of Durham versus Vickers Land Company, LLC et al., and that is a Durham County Superior Court case, file number 19, CDF 2239. And the second case is Daryl Howard versus City of Durham et al., and that is on a federal court case, and the file number is 17 CD 477. So at the conclusion of today's business, we would ask that the council recess to closed session for that discussion.
First, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept our city attorney's priority item.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilwoman Freeman, seconded by Councilman Williams. Madam Clerk, if you would call the roll.
Mayor O'Neill,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Middleton,
I vote aye.
Councilmember Freeman,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Reese,
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Thank you.
The ayes have it and the motion passes unanimously. I'm now ready to entertain a motion to hold a closed session at the end of this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved by Councilwoman Freeman and seconded by Councilman Williams. And Madam Clerk, if we will now call the roll.
Mayor O'Neill,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Middleton,
I vote aye.
Councilmember Freeman,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Reese,
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Thank you.
The ayes have it, and the motion passes unanimously. I will now recognize our city clerk for any priority items that she may have.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, and council members. The city clerk's office has no priority items today.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. My teacher. All right, now we will move to our second order of business, which is to read the administrative consent items. I'll then follow that by reading the departmental items. I'll also read our presentations and read our public hearing items as well. So we'll start with the administrative consent items. The first order from the city clerk's office is the approval of city council minutes. We now move to our departmental items. Item number 2, FY 2021-22 second quarter financial report. Item 3, adopt a resolution in support of the Declaration of Fundamental Reproductive Freedoms. Item 4, boards, committees, commissions, and task forces 2021 calendar year attendance reports. Item 5, expedited hearing request for zoning map change application, Z as in zebra, 210037 East Gear Street Residential. Item 6, the interlocal agreement with GoTriangle for reimbursement of commuter rail related waterline adjustments.
Madam Mayor, would you pull that, please?
Pull that, please.
Yes, pull that, please.
Number 7, the professional services contract award to Schnabel, SCHNABEL Engineering South, Professional Corporation for Little River Dam Embankment Settlement and Seepage Improvements. Item 8, January 2022 bid report. Item 9, 2022 Duke Doing Good Grant Project Ordinance. Item 10, the Emergency Watershed Protection EWP Stream Bank Stabilization EWP-2021-01 Amendment number 1.
We pull that, Madam Mayor.
Number 11, janitorial services for Public Works Operations Facility. Item 12, street and infrastructure acceptances. All right, Madam Manager, if we could just go back and make sure that I have the pull items correct. I have 2 pulled items. From the consent agenda would be item number 6, pulled by Councilman Freeman, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, and Councilwoman Freeman and Councilman Williams. And item number 10, pulled by Councilman Reese. Would that be correct?
That is correct, ma'am.
All right, thank you. We have a couple of presentations this afternoon as well. The item 13 will be 2021 fourth quarter crime report. Item 14 is the police satisfaction survey results. For public hearings, item 15, Ellis Road PDR rezoning to zoning map change. Item 16, U-Tower zoning map changed. And we also have a citizen who will be with us, Ms. Mary Barr. And I think we've heard the supplemental item from the finance department is the appointment of a finance officer, which was our manager's priority item, I believe. So we will now turn to hear from our citizens. We have Miss Mary Barr, who will be speaking to us this afternoon for 3 minutes. If Miss Barr is here.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, Miss Barr, you have 3 minutes. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. So my name is Mary Barr, and I live at 5 Shirley Caesar Court. If it would please you guys, I would like to give you a little background. I moved over here, had my house built June the 11th, 2011. It was my second time becoming a homeowner in a lifetime. The first time was in my home state. I didn't think I would ever become a homeowner again. Prior to that, I lived at Buchanan over by the Duke Wall. And it'd been so long since I was in this area that when Habitat told me where the property was, I thought I was lost because I didn't see the Faber Street project. And then it dawned on me that the project was torn down. So I moved in, everything went well. Shortly after I moved in, I noticed a lot of dumping of furniture on the other end of Merrick and Grant Street. And I asked my neighbors, because they were here when the Shirley Caesar Court was first organized, like, how long has this been going on, and is that okay with you guys? And they told me it wasn't nothing they could do about it. Well, I was taught that as long as I got a voice, you know, I got a voice. So I started calling the Durham One Call, and I started getting some cases set up that was never really like went into anything solid. I would get a case number, and like 2-3 days later, the city would come and clean up the mess. It can be anything from furniture, from washer and dryer, from contractor stuff. And it went on for like years. Like the last 5 years, it's been a lot of dumping. So a lot of times, I don't even use that side of the street. I do want to say about 4 or 5 months ago, one Sunday, I left home and I was headed to the village. So I went that direction. And there was about 15 police cars. And I rolled down my window and asked one of the officers, like, what is going on? We used to the dumping, but I've never seen that many officer cars. And he informed me that someone stole an ATM and they were under the knowledge that the ATM was dumped in that old Faber Street project field. And that's why it was so much police present. What he said to me that day was that it's up to the homeowners. You guys have a voice to call the city and get this street blocked off. And I said, well, I know you guys does a lot of fire drill out here. I see, you know, a lot. He said, but nevertheless, it's a dead end street. And the thing that get me about the dumping, and I have to say this before I address the right side of the street, because there's only 2 entrances to Shirley Caesar Court. The entrance coming in from Umstead, where the old library used to be, or the entrance coming in from Pettigrew and Grant Street. So all of this dumping around the curve and the dead end has taken place since I've been here, 2011. The last 5 years, it has gotten worse to the point that it's hard for me to go walking. It's no telling what you're gonna see on the ground. You're gonna see anything from drug paraphernalia, needles, condoms, all of these people, garbage. And I mean, they bring trees and everything, to the point that a lot of time I couldn't go that way if I wanted to, because you never know when there's construction, center block, or trees or branches. It's just not even safe to travel that way. But I still got this.
Ms. Barr, your 3 minutes are up, but I would give you 1 minute more to address, you said, the other side of your street. And then I will also ask, before she has this last minute, Ms. Barr, if there are any other citizens out there who would like to speak to the council, if you would raise your hand at this time so we can recognize you once Ms. Barr has her last minute. Ms. Barr, if you could wrap it up in 1 minute, please, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't know I had 3 minutes. So the right side of my street, it's been 5 weeks. I woke up one morning, went to bed a normal night. Woke up the next morning, it's about 15 people with a fire barrel. These people hangs out, they have their doors, their clothing, their food. They have 4 city trash can, and all I can do is just call the police officers who's over here 24/7. I said the other part about the other end of the street, because a police officer suggests call the city council. That's the only way you are going to get anything done. So that's why I'm here today.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
We appreciate you being here. Councilman Reese, I see your hand.
Thank you,
is
Mayor
raised.
O'Neill. Yeah, if I could just briefly, sometimes we talk about resident matters and sometimes we don't. I just want to thank the resident for reaching out to the council about this. I've spent a lot more time over the last 2 years during the pandemic than I care to admit, cruising our local dump sites, alerting the impact team to problems. And so I appreciate the resident for being vigilant about Merrick Street. She's absolutely right. As you come out of Shirley Caesar Court and take a left onto Merrick, it is a loop that goes around the former Fayetteville Street community. And I don't see any reason why the street can't be blocked off in that direction all the way up to Grant Street, because there are no homes or other street accesses between Shirley Caesar and Grant Street. So I hope the administration will look into that. That's very similar to what we did. Another dump site not terribly far from there off Roxborough is on Beeman Street. And that was a real problem. And maybe 6 or 7 months ago, city staff blocked off that end of Beeman Street that had been serving as a longtime dumping site with some large boulders, still giving the church that's there on the corner access to their parking, but blocking off that end. And it's eliminated a lot of those problems. Until that particular block around Merrick and Umstead is redeveloped, it's going to continue to be a problem because nobody lives around there. And so at least around that sort of northern part of the loop, which is why I'm very grateful to the resident for coming and talking to us about it. The stretch of Merrick between Umstead and Shirley Caesar is where the resident identified the problem previously. And I know my colleagues have read the 2 staff memos on this. I know the fire department was alerted to the possibility if there was a barrel fire. Now I think it just looks like there's a burned out stump sitting on that part of the sidewalk. And while there may have been a temporary structure built there with tarps and whatnot, no one was actually sleeping there. In any event, that's something that city staff is going to have to continue to be vigilant about. But I do hope that staff will look at blocking off that portion of Merrick until such time as the community itself is redeveloped. Hopefully that'll happen within my lifetime. That's all I wanted to add. And just again, to thank the resident. This is the kind of thing that folks really ought not have to deal with anywhere in our city. And I appreciate her vigilance and coming forward and talking about the problem and working with Durham One Call and the impact team. They are great folks, but they need to hear from us. They can't be everywhere in the city. They need us to reach out to them, tell them about problems. That's what I had. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem, thank you, Councilman Reese.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Councilmember Reese, for making some excellent points. We know that wherever a street's not activated or occupied, we see these type of issues, and there are a number around our city. So we might need to have a comprehensive kind of view of our city where others are dealing with this area. And my thanks as well to Ms. Barr for coming and speaking to us today. For our residents and citizens watching, one of the advantages of signing up to speak in advance for citizens' comments at the work session is that our staff does get an opportunity to look and to respond. And Councilmember Reese already alluded to the staff memos attached to this item. I was wondering if anyone from staff actually wanted to comment or respond on some of the observations made and some of the actions taken for purposes of our folk viewing who may not be reading the staff responses. If not, that's fine, but I know sometimes staff does respond during work sessions when our residents have raised concerns and staff has had time to treat them. Madam Manager, I see you.
Thank you for a brief opportunity. We did, as you have mentioned, provide the written responses coming from both our community development department and the homelessness component of this as well, police related. What we don't have in the written report is what we've heard today regarding the street closure potential and some of those additional areas that we can investigate and report back on. So while I did not ask the particular members that wrote the responses to be here, I felt it, in order for me to make those couple of comments on the record, as well as let you know that our team is recording the additional issues that were discussed here today for follow-up.
Thank you, Madam Manager, for that. And let me be clear, I don't want to in any way create the impression that those folks not being here is any way deficit. I mean, the responses are on point and substantive. I just know that sometimes they are, and just wanted to give an opportunity if they were. So thank you so much for that. And thank you again, Ms. Barr, for being here today and for doing what you should do and what's your right to petition your government for relief and redress. This is how it works. So thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I yield back.
Councilwoman Freeman. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo Mayor Pro Tem Middleton's comment about a holistic approach to this, acknowledging that is complaint driven. I could name at least 3 other streets on Elizabeth, on Liberty and Elm, and then also on Gooley Street. And so I can continue to name names, but I think we just need an approach that would actually cover this a little bit more in depth, because the dumping is starting to get, I mean, whenever the prices go up for the landfill, it just kind of goes up in the community. So thank you.
Just this past week, I too thank Ms. Barr, that's what you call community service. Just this past week, city manager and I and my assistant Amber Wade and Commissioner Wallace, we all met with the Keep Durham beautiful folk talking about the littering aspect of what I've seen in the last 5 years. I don't know whether the wording Dirty Durham was a good thing or a bad thing, because it certainly seems we've gotten a lot dirtier. And I always want to ask people, well, what did the earth do to you that you got a litter? That's, just keep it beautiful. And so I am very interested in making that a part of a citywide campaign. When I talk about 2.5 hours of community service to 5 hours a week, boom, that is the great place to start. Right, what Ms. Barr is doing, calling, saying, look, this is going on, come and get it, and being very proactive about keeping your space clean. There are lots of studies they tell me out there that says that, you feel a lot better about life. And I know in my own home, I feel a lot better about life if my house is clean and my yard is clean. So come on, Durhamites, we can do better, and we must do better. We love our city, and we want it to be clean. And so we have places to dump things, and the city certainly helps it in all areas of making sure that it gets there. I've used them many more times before I became mayor, to come pick up stuff at my house, and they're always timely, and they're always good about it. So we have help from the city angle, but it's more residents than it is city employees. So let's pick up the trash and keep Durham beautiful. All righty. Okay, we're going to move on to our pulled items, I believe. And I believe our first pulled item number 6. And I think it was pulled by the interlocal agreement with GoTriangle for reimbursement of commuter rail related waterline adjustments, and was pulled by 3 of my colleagues. I believe Mayor Pro Tem pulled it first, followed by, I can't remember the order, maybe Councilman Williams and also Councilwoman Freeman.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I'm willing to yield to one of my colleagues. They'll probably, if things go as they normally do, we'll cover my questions anyway, probably. So I'll yield to Councilmember Freeman or Councilmember Williams to go.
And I see Mr. Egan has come on the line for our second time today. All right, Councilman Williams or Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I just, when I saw the item, I was just interested. If you could give me a little bit more intel or information around how, I guess, the commuter rail design team is, I guess, figuring out where the design is for an item that we've not had a conversation about, that would be helpful. Because I'm concerned that we're jumping the gun and, I guess, addressing a waterline adjustment without having a conversation about commuter rail first.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, and members of council. I'm Sean Egan, Director of Transportation. So just a little background on this project. I think many of you know that the Gregson Street Rail Bridge has been a location where we've seen a high number of vehicle crashes over the last 10 years. Someone mounted a camera actually and put up a website showing videos of vehicles crashing. They called it the Can Opener Bridge. It's in, I think, Atlas Obscura and Ripley's Believe It or Not and a few other. It's given Durham international notoriety, the high number of crashes and large trucks that have had their roofs peeled off by the Can Opener Bridge. So this has been an issue of concern for the city for a long time. In 2019, NCDOT and North Carolina Railroad initiated a project to raise the profile of the rail bridge from 11 foot 8 inches to 12 foot 4 inches. So that 8-inch increase has provided more and better clearance for vehicles, but we're still seeing somewhere in the neighborhood of a crash a month at this location. And so one of the issues that the commuter rail design team did when they came into downtown Durham was to identify potential safety deficiencies along the alignment. And they identified this as an issue. The way that the railroad track is laid down, it would be very difficult to raise the track up higher, to raise the bridge up higher than that 12 foot 4 level. So if you want to improve the clearance of the roadway and the bridge, you would have to dig down and essentially lower the profile of the roadway running underneath the bridge if you want to increase that clearance. So the team looked at that as a safety concern as part of the study of the corridor. And they looked at the underground utilities and found that if you wanted to dig down and lower the roadway on Gregson, you would hit a water line. So they looked at, we did some outreach to our colleagues in water management and asked them, would it be possible, since they were already doing major water line replacement work, this whole area was going to be torn up as part of the American Tobacco District water line project. Would it be possible as part of that work to relocate the portion of the water line that runs underneath where the rail bridge is? And then that way, if we were to come back at a future date, whether it's for the commuter rail or not, this is an ongoing safety concern. The city works regularly with NCDOT and the railroads on rail crossing safety projects. There's significant federal money in the new bipartisan infrastructure law for railroad related safety improvements. So whether we do this lowering of the roadway through the commuter rail project, or whether we advance it as a standalone safety improvement in partnership with NCDOT and the railroads, utilizing some of that new federal infrastructure funding, it still provides an opportunity for us to improve safety, reduce crashes and the risk of harm or even fatality in line with our Vision Zero goals. So we saw this since the road was already going to be torn up and the water line was already going to be worked on. We could do a relatively small change order to relocate that water line, move it out of the way so that that prepares it for a future project, whether that's commuter rail or one of our routine rail safety improvement projects.
Thank you, that's helpful. And I appreciate that line of thinking. And I think that that's the way we should be working and trying to make sure that we're realigning and moving where we can and cutting costs. I would just add that in that process, there has to be a way to address safety for pedestrians as far as crosswalks, especially near bus stops. And so I know that the bipartisan infrastructure deal also includes a lot of funding for infrastructure, but the infrastructure may be as light as just painting. And so I'm not sure where that conversation is occurring, but I would love to be included in it because I've got a lot of ideas, I guess I should say. But thank you, that helps. And I will yield. Thank you.
Councilman Williams.
Hey, yeah, thank you, Sean. I too just wanted a little more insight on this project, as you know, light rail and commuter rail has been quite the topics, and you know, we spent our share on these projects. So when I look and see, you know, what this is, you know, I'm new to this process. So I'm trying to understand all aspects of it. So I was thinking, I mean, yes, the can opener bridge has given us international sensation. However, is it, you know, was it a matter of just rerouting the trucks, or is it, do we have to go and do this on the ground? I was just trying to get better understanding of what our options are here, rather than just an up or down vote on this one situation.
So we have made changes to the signage around there to direct trucks, but we don't always see compliance with the signage. There are some warnings, some warning flashers in place for vehicles traveling there. But again, there's not always compliance with that. After those were some of the changes that were put into place when the bridge was lifted in 2019, and it was raised from 11'8" to 12'4". So we recognize that the signage warnings are effective, but we also know that human behavior, people make mistakes. So we're interested in making sure that we're designing our transportation network in a way that has allowances for people making mistakes, and that if there is an area where we see routine crashes where someone could get hurt or someone could get killed, that we take advantage of other initiatives that are already underway. There's major disruption. Gregson Street is closed today and through next week as a result of the Waterline project. That's been very disruptive for our residents, our bus services, all of the impacts of that Waterline project. So if we can take advantage of both the cost benefit of tacking this on to an effort that was already underway, where the street was already being torn up, and that disruption was already impacting our residents, then this is an opportunity for us to lay the groundwork to be able to submit a future application for funding to do a more robust improvement, look at lowering the roadway, and get to a point where we're not seeing, you know, one crash a month at this location where someone could get hurt or someone could get killed.
Okay, and the other clarification was, so is, based on the reading for me, it's reimbursement of commuter rail related waterline adjustments. So in particular, you know, Councilmember Freeman spoke about, you know, pedestrian safety, but it seems that the subject matter here is commuter rail. Who is this to benefit?
So this was identified.
Is that the only affiliated, you know, subject matter here for this to be moved over?
So this was identified as an issue in the course of the commuter rail design work that's taking place right now. The conflict between the ability to lower the roadway and the Waterline project. So it was flagged by that design team as a need and we got an offer from GoTriangle that said, if the city would be willing to do this, which is in our interest to develop a safe transportation network, that since it would also be beneficial if the commuter rail proceeds forward, the commuter rail project in GoTriangle would pay for half of the cost of this. This is something that I think, had we identified it on our own as a necessary critical path element for a safety improvement, we would have potentially paid 100% of the cost for this as a way to make our transportation network safer in an area where we know we have a high crash rate. In this case, because it was identified by the GoTriangle team and they had an interest in this in the course of the commuter rail project, they offered to pay for half of the cost of something that really aligned very closely with the city's priorities on safe transportation networks.
Awesome, thank you so much. Mayor, I'm gonna bring it to a close here. So we go through with this project and commuter rail, let's say for whatever reason it doesn't move forward, do we still get the reimbursement?
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll still get the reimbursement, and then we would look at other avenues like funding coming from the BIL or through NCDOT's Railroad Safety Program to advance the work at this location.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor, for the time.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I suspected, my colleagues' questions indeed did provide context and nuance for the questions I had. Firstly, Sean, good to see you. Let me say, I'm a big fan of kind of exploiting when we have holes in the ground around our city. If we can find multiple purposes, kind of piggyback on them. I'm actually here in Greensboro now for a board of directors meeting for the North Carolina League of Municipalities. And one of the strategies we've been talking about cities around the state, particularly with respect to dark fiber and the architecture for high-speed internet, is while we have holes in the ground for other projects, if we can go in there and kind of piggyback on those opportunities to put dark fiber down, to do other, mess around with utilities down there, although we intended it for one purpose, if we can lump other purposes to it, I think that's a good thing and that's the way to go. With that said, I am curious because it seems like, and I appreciate you bringing to light the dual kind of benefits of this for light rail, commuter rail, the potentiality of it, and also safety in terms of being able to lower the floor for, just to stop the can opener effect at the bridge. It seems to me though that the memo and how it's presented is just about commuter rail. And it seems like that those benefits, didn't get brought out until this conversation. And I appreciate Councilmember Freeman and Councilmember Williams' question. So I guess my first question is, if just dealing with the can opener effect, if lowering the road were an option to stop trucks from jacking themselves up under the bridge, was that ever considered as a step that we can take as a city, separate from GoTriangle coming to us and presenting this option to us for future commuter rail improvements?
So I'll just say that I think I agree with you that this should have been spelled out much more clearly in the memo, and I take responsibility for that we could have addressed this and put this to rest in the memo. I think there have been analyses of this done by NCDOT and North Carolina Railroad in the past. Typically, when they see a major utility conflict like a water line, they may eliminate that from consideration because it would be so disruptive and expensive to relocate a water line. So what this does is, while this may have been identified as a potential and then not advanced because of the utility conflict, this removes that utility conflict so that when this comes back again, this can be done at a much lower cost and with much less disruption to the community.
I guess what I'm curious about is that absent DOT's insertion of themselves in this matter, the lines were just going to stay where they were if left to us when we opened up the ground, correct?
Yeah, we were going to leave things, with the current alignments.
Right. So whatever the benefits of moving them did not occur to us at the time when we were, in other words, if that was the optimal thing to do, why were we not going to do that until GoTriangle inserted themselves into the equation?
I think GoTriangle undertook a level of detailed design work that we had not previously done. I think it speaks to that broader question of collaboration across city agencies. When we are going to put a hole in the ground, are we having a really comprehensive interdepartmental discussion about all of those needs? I think we miss opportunities when we don't have a robust interdepartmental coordination around these issues. And I think this would have been an example of a missed opportunity had it not been for the timing of the detailed design work that GoTriangle was undertaking at this time.
I get, fair enough, but GoTriangle's detailed design work is predicated upon commuter rail, though. I mean, their interest in this is they're anticipating what might happen in terms of commuter rail. They weren't being motivated by pedestrian safety or the can. I mean, they're a one-note symphony. So, and that I don't mean not pejorative, but that's what they're about. Their interest is commuter rail, which is fair. I guess with the 78 grand, we weren't going to move the lines until GoTriangle inserted themselves. So what? And there's no doubt that there is some benefit to us, but how do we explain to taxpayers, and 78 grand is not a lot of money, I get it split two ways, but what is the city's compelling interest in splitting this, since we weren't going to do this prior to GoTriangle's insertion into this equation? We're doing this, and this is a good idea for us to do as a city because commuter rail, or? Because
it provides an opportunity for us to make a future roadway safety improvement at a location where we know we have a very strong crash history. So we didn't identify this through the planning process for the Waterline work, but in my view, if we had flagged it at that point, it would have been something that would have been of strong interest to transportation to address if we had identified this and as an opportunity during the planning process. I think we missed that opportunity during the planning process, but then the commuter rail was looking at a whole series of potential conflicts and issues. This is one that is a conflict for the commuter rail project, but whether commuter rail advances or not, the city still has a very strong interest in improving safety at a high crash location. And it's something that we would be interested in working with NCDOT and with the federal rail safety programs in advancing a project to improve safety at this high crash location. It just so happens that GoTriangle, their analysis flagged it at a time when we could make a change order to the Waterline contract at very limited expense and without significantly increasing the disruption to the community. It's something that we really, it spares us from having to go back and both relocate at a future date. Say we won a grant from NCDOT or the federal government to lower the roadway, that a project would be much less costly and much less disruptive to our community now that this water line is being relocated away from the roadway.
Cool, and this is my final, and that's my, this is my final question, I guess my final point. So we're not doing what would be a good idea now because of cost. In other words, we know that this area begs for improvements for safety. And while the ground is open, we're not going to do what we know we probably need to do right now because it would cost too much. Is that fair?
We're not going to do both pieces of it. We're not going to do both the utility relocation and the lowering of the roadway. But we are going to do the first piece, which is the relocating the water line. And that means that when we want to come back and do part 2 of it, that it will be much less expensive and much less disruptive.
Okay. I'm going to stop there, Madam Mayor, because I see some of my other colleagues want to jump in. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right. Councilman Reese, then followed by Councilwoman Freeman.
I just wanted to add my thanks to Director Egan for moving this agenda item forward. I think this is a crash area that the city's known about for some time. We had hopes that the NCDOT funded changes at this location would eliminate the crash frequency. It has been reduced, but not eliminated, and still is one of the highest crash frequencies that we see. I'm so grateful to Director Egan for moving us forward with this item, because even as he has said multiple times, even if commuter rail doesn't end up happening, we still get the benefit from doing this work, and then can proceed at a much lower expense and disruption rate to take additional measures to improve safety at this location. I also wanted to take a moment to thank Director Egan for his service to the city. I don't know that there's been a department director that I've worked more closely with since he's been here in my former time with MPO board. And Sean, I just wanted to say that our city owes you a debt of gratitude for the way that you have actively engaged with council members who are on the MPO board to try to more forcefully assert the city's interests in that forum than at any time since I've been on the council. And I think that has been to a great benefit to the people of Durham. So thanks, Sean. I've enjoyed working with you and your staff, and also much love to Bill Judge, who will always be a superstar in my book. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much, Councilman Reese. Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Reese, for reassuring us around Mr. Egan's work on the MPO board. There are 2 things specifically I just want to follow up on, and I appreciate my colleagues raising the questions as well. And so the first thing is, I would just like to know if Kimberly Horn is also involved with the design team for the commuter rail. That's one. And if they are, how much of this has already been, kind of laid out? I just want to know how much we're actually saving GoTriangle and doing this. And the timing in and of itself does definitely bother me. So I do have some questions around that. And then the second thing is just noting the project. I realize that there's a lot of granite sidewalks down there. Would that be replaced? Or granite curbing, not sidewalks, but granite around the curves. Would that be replaced, or would it just be cement? And I want to be real specific, like this downtown area is got a few little historic pieces left to it, and I would greatly like to preserve that.
So on the first question, the prime consultant for the commuter rail study is a company called STV. I'm not familiar with all of the sub-consultants that they're using, but I'm not aware of Kinley Horn Associates being a sub-consultant on that project, but they do work together in coordination around other projects like the Durham County Transit Plan, for which commuter rail is one of the funded initiatives. In terms of what we would do to the curbs and sidewalks in the course of lowering the roadway, I think all of that would proceed with kind of the phase 2 of this. After the water line is replaced, we would look at a layout and look at those curb lines as well as sidewalk and pedestrian safety needs in the course of design to lower the roadway at a future time. So I don't think any design decisions have been made on those issues, but certainly welcome your input, and we would solicit input from the community as well in the course of designing any of those roadway and sidewalk and curb changes.
Thank you. I just want to say that I'm not for certain, I definitely don't think this should be on GBA. I do think that, I mean, on consent agenda, I think it should be on GBA. I just have some concerns about the way in which we're moving forward with this project. And even just the titling of it is troublesome. But I do have to say I'm not 100% on board with this. So thank you.
Councilman Williams?
Yeah, quick question for Sean. Do we have a, in regards of the design team, do we have an itemized breakdown of how they are, I guess, you know, facilitating their work and how this project will be a part of that? Like, do we, so it's what, 78,000 and they would reimburse half of it? Do we know, like, the consulting team or the design team or whoever it is, do we have a breakdown or a fiscal schedule in the work that they're doing in this area?
So the American Tobacco District Waterline project is a very large scale effort that's being done. It's been underway for almost 2 years now, and it has done extensive replacement of waterline work. The team that manages that provides updates every 2 weeks on their web link, which is available at American Tobacco. It's durham-nc.gov/278/American-tobacco-district-waterline-REPL. So that's where you can see the information, for example, that Gregson Street is closed right now. It'll be closed also next week from Pettigrew to West Chapel Hill streets. What the $78,000 does is it pays for the construction change order for this. So the construction contract was already underway. And when we identified this as an opportunity to relocate that water line to as a phase 1 for this project, we asked Water Management if they could get a quote from their contractor that's doing this water line work. What would your additional cost be to change the water line alignment so that to clear it outside of the roadway? So the cost for the contractor that's doing this water line work was $78,000. They said if you want to make this change to the construction contract, this is the additional cost that you would incur. It provides substantial savings. The cost of closing streets, tearing up, gets into the hundreds of thousands of dollars very quickly. So since all of that work was already paid for under the contract, this was just the construction work required to relocate the water line away from underneath Gregson. That's what this $78,000 change order does. It's on the city's construction contract, and then GoTriangle agreed to pay for half of the cost of this out of the commuter rail budget, because it would potentially reduce their long-term cost and disruption if they were to do that. But as I said, even if that project doesn't move forward, the city still has a strong interest in that second phase of improving safety at this location.
Okay, thank you so much. And just to be clear, my colleagues here, I'm not necessarily overly concerned about the cost of the project. It's more so the outcome of the project and who benefits when. So I do believe it's necessary. But I just, as we all just went through the light rail project, anything that says rail right now, I'm just extremely concerned. I do have a lot of questions, and my email is leonardo.williams@durhamnc.gov for any of my colleagues across the triangle who want to have a conversation about this. So I appreciate it.
I see our city manager has come on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Director Egan has, responded to questions as the council has requested. We certainly hear that this item will be on our GBA agenda 11 days from now. What I wanted to just highlight very briefly, this work session is the time where we really, as was said earlier, we dig into things that may or may not even be necessarily in the documents that you see there, but really because this is an interlocal agreement, that the real purpose of it is an interlocal agreement with GoTriangle. That is the reason that you see the title like it is, and you see, that scope of the item really being what GoTriangle and Durham are engaging in. So some of the additional conversation around the safety matters, they are very, very significant to this conversation, but would not necessarily have been incorporated or included in such an interlocal agreement with this scope. So just wanted to just kind of highlight that as well, because I know the title and subject has come up as a concern of the council.
Thank you, City Manager Page. Are there any other issues or questions regarding item number 6? Thank you, Mr. Egan. Oh, no. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, Madam Mayor, just a kind of a procedural observation, not so much for Sean. Sometimes we pull items from consent and put them on GBA and require the staff to do more work. But in this matter, I don't think that, and Councilmember Freeman can certainly speak for herself, I believe she's pulling it just so she can have the option of voting no on it, that we're not requiring the staff to do any more legwork or due diligence between now and the evening. Just want to give them a heads up, make sure that we're not requiring any more work on the part of the staff. This is just to position ourselves to register our vote the way we want to vote on this particular issue and not necessarily impact the entire consent agenda. Just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. She went off camera for a second, so we'll take it that your reading of that would be correct. All right, we will move to our next pulled item, which is item number 10, the Emergency Watershed Protection EWP Stream Bank Stabilization EWP-2021-01 Amendment Number 1. Our resource person for this matter from staff is Mr. Antoine Williams, and I believe Councilman Reese pulled this item. You may have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor O'Neill. I pulled this item not because I have concerns about it, but because I wanted to highlight the underlying project as a great kind of stealth success of our city and our public works department, especially our stormwater division, and the project manager, Antoine Williams, who just came online and turned his camera off. I wanted to give my colleagues a little bit of context. In late 2018, the Northgate Neighborhood Association reached out to a couple of council members to come and see stormbank erosion along the banks of Ellerby Creek, just west of Farthing Road. And so Councilmember Freeman and I went out there together and took a look at it. It was pretty bad. We had 2 of our stormwater staff come out, including a staffer in the Public Works Department named Dana Cornbull. And Dana and I had a number of conversations after that about potential sources of funding for the kind of stabilization work that were going to be needed. Essentially, Ellerby Creek was eroding the banks that were leading up to a number of homes along that area. And while the erosion would have taken quite a few years to reach the homes, there were a number of outbuildings and sheds, a couple of chain link fences that might have gone into the creek had stabilization work not been done. Now, this was all in connection with damage caused in large part, at least initially, by Hurricane Florence, but it was a longer term problem that had been affecting folks living in this area for quite some time. Dana went to a meeting of the neighborhood association and brought a couple of other staffers and talked about the history of development upstream from this particular spot talked about why erosion was so bad there. There was a confluence of an offshoot that comes into the main creek there that causes some additional erosion, and talked about the possibility of looking for federal funds, emergency watershed protection funds. Since that time, the funds were applied for, received, the work put out for bid, and Antoine Williams took over as project manager. I had the same neighbors who reached out to me about it 3.5 years ago. I ran into, as I was volunteering with the Ellery Creek Watershed Association last week, Ian Pond. Ian told me, you should go out and take a look at that. I was just there earlier this week and it looks fantastic. I drove over there, did a little light trespassing along somebody's backyard to get back there. And I just wanted to say that this is an example of the kind of thing that our city staff is doing all the time. This came through an agenda, our first work session in August of last year, to bid out the work. And by the way, this came through with a project that almost doubled its MWBE goal. So really glad to see that as well. Long story short, I pulled this because this is the kind of work that few people see, except the people whose backyards really rely on the ingenuity and hard work of our city staff to kind of beat the bushes and find funding sources out there, to bid the work out, to find vendors who will do it while exceeding their MWBE goals, and to find folks like Antoine Williams who will put it all together and deliver a project that looks fantastic and delivers for the folks who really need help with their eroding backyards. So anyway, just wanted to say thank you to Antoine Williams and also to Director Marvin Williams, who runs one of the finest departments in city government. That's all I had to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Reese. Thank you, Mr. Williams. All right, I believe that concludes all of our pulled items for this afternoon, and we will now turn to our presentations, items 13 and 14, which will come from our police department. Item 13 is the 2021 fourth quarter crime report, and we see our Chief of Police. Hey, Chief.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor. Good afternoon. Thank you. I hope everyone is well. Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Durham City Council, and city leaders, I bid you hello and hope everyone is doing well on this day. I am going to share with you our Durham Police Department 2021 fourth quarter report. So just bear with me while I do my screen sharing. Okay, can you all see me? See the screen yet? Should be coming up.
Now. Yep, coming up. We see it now.
Perfect. It's all about the small wins, so that's good. All right, so as you know, this report covers our department's 5 performance measures, and those are Part 1 violent crime, Part 1 property crime, our clearance rate, response times to our priority 1 calls, as well as staffing levels. And then we'll just take a look at some of our highlights for 2021. So the slide that you see in front of you shows the Part 1 violent crimes and Part 1 property crimes per 100,000 population since 2000 in our great city. And I'll just remind you that our Part 1 violent crimes include homicides, rapes, robberies, and aggravated assaults. The Part 1 property crimes are the burglaries, larcenies, and motor vehicle thefts. So what you'll notice is that in 2021, our violent crime per 100,000 population did drop by 26% overall from 2000. And was down by 15% from last year. Our property crime rate, again, per 100,000 population, was down by 58% in 2021 compared to 2000. And then it was down 12% from 2021. So moving on to our Part 1 violent crime. This is really This is one of the big things for us now, right, for our city. And what we did notice is that of our Part 1 violent crime, homicide and rape did see increases from last year compared to this year. And there was a significant, or a 35% increase in homicide. So we ended the year, unfortunately, with 50 homicides compared to 37 in 2020. Our rapes, sexual assaults were ended the year at 122 compared to 116. So our homicides, of those 50, 3 were deemed justifiable. 1 was related to domestic violence. Of those, in 2021, 18 of those homicides were cleared. And then 6 of those cases that we did clear were from prior years. So when we talk about kind of our cold case investigation, we were able to clear 6 from prior years. You heard me talk about the increase in sexual assault and rapes. And we do want to note that the quarter of our cases in 2021 were actually belated reports. So, you know, we want to continue to have the reports. It doesn't matter when it happened, we still want your report. So what I see in these numbers is that our victims are coming forward, they're being brave and strong, and they're coming forward to report no matter when it happened. So we want to continue to see that. We did see a decrease in our robberies and aggravated assaults, and then an overall decrease of 11% of our violent crime rate compared to last year. So our shooting incidents, of the 4 categories, 3 of the categories we saw was a reduction. Those 3 as our shootings, our persons shot, and our non-fatal. We did see obviously an increase in our fatal shootings compared to last year of 24%. So I do want to note one thing here. As you all know, or you recall, in September of 2020, the Durham Police Department centralized and formed a violent crime unit. And the primary responsibility of this unit is to really focus on the shootings that are occurring within our city. So we are talking about very focused investigations. We work very closely with our intelligence and gang units, criminal investigations division, and organized crime divisions, as well as our patrol officers, as this unit particularly moves forward to identify suspects and solve some of these cases. So I will tell you that the unit alone has handled more than 700 cases, and that includes the gunshot wounds, the shootings that are vandalisms, shooting into occupied vehicles, and dwellings with no injuries. And we have also seen just really a dramatic improvement in communication for all of our staff because of the centralization of this unit. We continue to work extremely close with our federal prosecutors as we move forward to prosecuting, but also solving these cases. And I would say, just want to give a huge shout out to our forensics team. So I do want to highlight the work that they are doing as well as it relates to NIBIN and their work with the ATF. And I do have some stats for you here. So as a part of NIBIN, it's the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network and our partnership with the ATF. And some of the equipment that we actually have here in-house. So I've said a couple times before that our forensic services team, the ability that we have to really be self-sustaining as it relates to a lot of our investigations is phenomenal. The only thing that we are not capable of doing at this point in time is our own DNA analysis, but everything else we are able to do. We work closely to review our shell casings that we are finding at crime scenes, which shell casings are very important. And we've developed 870 leads in 2021. And those are some of the key elements that we do need in order to help prosecute some of the cases that we are bringing both state and federally. And the efforts have helped clear 20% of our shootings incidents in 2021, and that's up from 12% in 2020, and then up even more from 2019, where it was 13%. So just want to give a huge shout out to all of our staff, but really our forensics unit is doing some great work working with our federal partners. Okay, so this chart that you see before you, it's going to just really break down our shooting incidents by year and offense type for the last 6 years. So what we noted here is that there were more than 100 fewer shooting incidents or fewer shootings in 2021 than there were in 2020. And we also saw less incidents of robberies involving firearms and vandalisms involving firearms in 2021. All right, so guns. We have unfortunately seen an increase in the amount of guns that we have on our streets and also what we are seizing. So what you have in front of you is a chart that shows our overall seizures from 2010 to 2021. And then the blue line indicates the total guns seized. And then what's really key here is the percentage that we are seizing from traffic stops. So that tells you that the guns are being transported, right, in cars from one place to another. What we noted was that there were 105 more guns seized in 2021 compared to what we seized in 2020. So I do want to just note that 21% of those seizures did come from traffic stops, and that is our highest percentage since the past 11 years. And then in 2021, 53% of all searches originated from traffic stops, which resulted in contraband being found. And that is the highest rate dating back to 2010. So what we can see here is just an upward trend, which we see nationwide, but also what we identify here in the city of Durham. 81% of all of our searches were based upon probable cause. I do want to note, just put a pin to note that our 2021 traffic stop report is being completed as we speak. And there you will find more information that really drills down, gets very specific about traffic stop data. And that report will be finalized and released shortly. So let's talk about stolen firearms. You know, the information and data that we have on the amount of firearms being stolen is certainly just as moving as the firearms that we are seizing. So this slide particularly shows that the guns reported stolen in 2019, 2020, and 2021. And what I want you to look at and pay special attention to is that column right in the middle. So that's your larceny from motor vehicle column. And then look at how it just looks like like a series of steps. And what you'll see is that there's a steady increase of guns stolen out of cars. And what we know is that 55% of our stolen firearms were stolen from cars, being broken into cars in 2021. So we look at cases from the past 2 years. 64% of those cars were left unlocked. 15% were stolen from cars that were confirmed to have been locked. So obviously they were left in the car, but they had to have some sort of forced entry to get to the gun. And then the remaining 21% of the cases, we just weren't able to determine. The victim couldn't remember, and we just would, we didn't want to say it was unlocked if the victim couldn't really remember whether or not it was locked or unlocked. We have been working very, very hard to drill home the importance of securing your firearm, removing that firearm from the car altogether. The importance of making sure that if you are owning a firearm, that the responsibility is great, and it's even more important that you are responsible with where you are placing your firearm. I would say that the number of firearms that we had reported stolen in 2021, it was up 14% and then a 16% increase. We have recovered, though, less than 15% of those firearms that were stolen in 2021. So we still have guns that are out there. So this slide here is really just a snapshot of our property crimes, January through December: burglary, larceny, vehicle theft, and overall property crime. So what you'll see is that we have had a reduction in all categories compared to 2021. And, when we look at the burglary series, especially the burglaries and the vehicle thefts, so we attribute that significant decrease to COVID. So people were still home, right? During 2021, we were still sheltering. Vehicle thefts were down, and we would like to say that, one, that's a combination of people being at home, but also two, people are now being more aware of being mindful of, not leaving your keys in your cars, not letting your cars warm up without you being in the car. So I think we're starting to get some traction from that, hoping that we'll also get the same results from our educational campaigns regarding firearms. Again, Honda Accords, are most stolen. Although our reported vehicle thefts were down 22%, don't really know what it is about the Honda Accords. We'll work with staff to maybe see if we can break those numbers out to see what year are we looking at, what are the years of those Honda Accords being stolen. And then 51% of our vehicles stolen did have the keys in them or had the engine running. And then 85% of all of our stolen vehicles stolen in 2021 have been recovered. All right, clearance rate. So we finally were able to update the FBI clearance numbers. So what you see here, so you see your Durham Police Department 2021, the crime category, the clearance rates in that category last year, so 2020 or year before, and then the FBI 2020 clearance rate. So generally, FBI is almost a year behind in posting clearance rates, national clearance rates, and the clearance rates are broken down by population, right? So we are in that population category of 250,000 to 499,999. The 2021 clearance rates were better in several categories compared to our 2020 clearance rates. And those categories, as you see on your screen, include homicides, robberies, aggravated assaults, burglaries, motor vehicle thefts. Our overall Part 1 violent crimes and overall Part 1 property crimes were better clearance rate-wise than they were in 2020. Now, for our FBI clearance rate, our clearance rates for robbery, aggravated assault, violent crime, and all property crimes were higher than the FBI clearance rate average in 2020 for cities our size. So what that says to us is that we are still clearing cases higher than the national average, despite the workload on our staff. That really does indicate that we are focusing on the right things, that we are really getting information out to our community. We are receiving a lot of information, and we have some great partnerships, and we're working well with all of those entities within our city and also locally and federally. So our rape clearance rates, sexual assault clearance rates, they were affected by just a temporary slowdown of the testing of rape kits. That has started back again. Obviously, there was a backlog, working through the backlog, and so we're starting to receive some of those kits back again. And then our aggravated assault clearance rate, as you'll see, it was along with it was higher, right, than the national average, but also higher than 2020. It is affected by the multi-victims. So you hear me talking about in our firearms cases, we are seeing shooting incidents that have multiple victims, right? And you all know this, so I don't necessarily have to say this to you, you know that. Let's talk about our calls for service. You know, as we start to look at factors like staffing and growth and how busy we are, population, people returning to work, you know, this all rolls into our priority one response for calls of service. And these are our response times, average response times. So we were up 1% from 2020. We responded to 8,145 priority one calls for service. Our target, where we really want to be, is 5.8 minutes. The average response time has been over that at 6.23, 6 minutes, 23 seconds. We had 57% of our calls were under the 5-minute response time. And then even less than that, under 5-minute response. So it's 51%. So let's talk about our staffing. Always, you know, we staffing, violent crime, those are big for us, right? And we are constantly having this push for recruiting, also retaining. Want to again thank you all for the work that you did around the pay plan, city staff as well as council, and really bringing that to fruition. It is much appreciated. We still have some work to do internally, and we are doing that. So staffing at the end of the fourth quarter, 2021. So our authorized positions, as you know, are 537. We were 85% staffed with 456 positions actually filled. Our non-sworn staffing, the heart, right, of Durham Police Department, we were at 89% end of December 2021. And that was down from 94% staffing at the end of 2020. I will reflect back and let you know that at the end of 2020, we were, for sworn officers, we were 90% staffed compared to at the end of 2019, we were 94% staffed. So you see a pretty big reduction from 94 to 90, now 84 since 2019. So right now we started Academy 55. That started on Valentine's Day. What a great day to start an academy. We started with 13, and so we are really pushing through, but we are continuing to recruit. Our next BLET Academy will start shortly after that. We are filling for that academy. We are constantly working on our recruiting and assessing our recruiting. And obviously our recruiting and retention affects, you know, our boots on the ground, our staffing of officers responding to 911 calls. I will say that we did start our kind of the all hands on deck patrolling in January, and that is still going on. The first iteration to the end of March. We have made an executive team decision to continue that staffing. So everyone from me all the way down to our supervisors, so lieutenants, sergeants, and everyone else will be continuing to supplement the shifts with working modified shifts. And so what we've done is we've reduced it from 4 days that every individual officer has to sign up for 4 days. We've reduced it to 2 days. And again, we rely very heavily on what the data is showing us and what the data has shown us. And I will present at our next quarterly update report is that this was an effective effort. And I'm so thankful that our patrol staff suggested it and brought it to the table, and we just made it happen on this end. So I'm very, very happy about that. And so I will say that our recruiting officers, they're continuing to attend all of recruiting fairs, really getting the word out. We are in the process of rebranding. We are launching our 30 by 30 initiative in a most prestigious and fitting way in Women's History Month that's coming up in March. So I want to thank Public Affairs Unit for coming along on the ride for this one as well. And then we have just finished our recruiting strategic plan. That's a living document that will change as our recruiting needs change. And we are also working on some internal retention efforts as well. So I want to talk about U visa requests by quarter. So the Durham Police Department received 68 U visa requests during the fourth quarter of 2021. 63% of those were approved. We currently do not have a backlog of U visa requests. So very thankful that now we are able to process those requests as they come in. So what we've seen with kind of the most denials is that we've seen that the request that we're getting is not a qualifying crime. So there's a litany or a list of qualified crimes. And we are starting to see applications being submitted that don't meet that statute, right, or don't meet that obligation in order to be able to grant a U visa. So we are currently working on and planning some dates to host a forum out in the community to educate our community on U visas, where to find them, what happens when you get one, what do you need to do, how to fill it out, what is qualifying, what are qualifying incidents or qualifying crimes, and then, what to do if you're just stuck. You can always call us and we're happy to help walk you through that. So more to come on that initiative. And then finally, some really great work that's being done by staff. Law enforcement is just a small part of what we do. We are really continuing to do the great work and outreach in our community with our Bikes, Beds, and Helmets initiative. It's a great partnership with Durham Co-op, Sleep in Heavenly Peace, and the North Carolina Department of Transportation. They provided the really neat free bicycle helmets. We visited several apartment complexes, the Boys and Girls Club, and other locations in Durham to provide bikes, helmets, and beds to those that need it the most. We built and delivered 25 beds. We're working on an additional 55 requests that are constantly coming in. So this is definitely a needed component to our outreach. Again, carrying on our fourth quarter community outreach, pandemic didn't stop us. We weren't going to let it stop us from continuing to conduct outreach, whether it was virtually or getting together when the weather was wonderful. We held a lot of events to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, reaching out to our Hispanic community. Some of the pictures that you see reflect the event that was held at La Gran Fiesta on October 9th and at the Crossroads Apartments at 501. Our Hispanic Liaison Officer, Community Services Division officers, Victim Services staff, and District 3 officers participated in that. You see our motor officers that are there. They're always happy to help out. We did participate in, on November 4th, a tree planting event at Edgemont Park, and that was done in conjunction with the Trees of Durham, Durham Housing Authority, Durham Fire Department, Neighborhood Improvement Services, Parks and Rec. I mean, it was just a great day for everyone. And if you have not seen those trees, they are absolutely beautiful at Edgemont Elm and Edgemont Parks. Our holiday initiative, you know, I turned around one day, left, there was no presents under the tree, and I came back and saw that the presents were all under the tree. Great initiative by our staff and property and evidence unit. It's a tradition of, you know, paying it forward, especially during the holiday season. The PEU worked with urban ministries to help support them. We held a food and clothing drive, and you see what the result was. It was incredible, absolutely incredible. We also donated some gently used bikes to Love and Respect Recovery for a community bike giveaway that was being done on the 23rd. And then Toys for Tots, employees from our Biochemical Emergency Response Team, or BCERT, District 5 partners, they really did a fantastic job with pulling all of these initiatives together. Our recruiting unit, they tried to wrap gifts, but it's always the thought that counts, but they did a great job. I wasn't there, so I can't judge, but they did a fantastic job wrapping gifts as a part of the Giving Tree holiday program. And then our employees at the city's attorney's office with our very own attorney, Tony Russ, gifted dozens of new inspiring books. Love the story of Ruby Bridges, definitely a great book, and so many more. So we were able to help stock the DPD's little library. And you can find us on DPD social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I thank you for your time today, and certainly thank you for all of your support.
Thanks, Chief. I'm going to open it up to our colleagues to see if you have any questions for our Chief today. All right, Councilman Williams, see your hand raised.
Thank you so much for this report, this update, Chief. I did have a question about the Part 1 violent crime, January through December. The shooting incidents year to date. So I see we have less shootings, less people shot, but more fatally. So either folks' aim is getting better, or there is more intentionality here?
Yeah, so I will say that every shooting is shootings that are not non-fatal. We were just very fortunate. You know, I think there is a lot more intentionality, right? I think that there is a lot more of that happening in our city, and certainly there are still a lot of the driving by and just firing shots. We do have that, but really we are seeing the emergence of the intentional targeting and shooting.
Thank you. I'm going to ask a question you may not be able to answer right now, but there's something really interesting about how many cars are left unlocked in a city that is experiencing high crime right now. Is that like some covert tactic, or are we finding anything there? Is there?
Yeah, you know, I think we just sometimes find ourselves moving too quickly in this world. And, you know, we just have to take our time and make sure that our belongings are secured no matter where you are. So that's just really the message that we're trying to drive home to people.
Got you. Thank you. And last question. Is there any type of psychological verification on what's happening in our city with this crime? Within the avenue of criminology, is there any type of qualitative rationale that could accompany what we're seeing quantitatively?
Yeah, I absolutely, I know exactly what you're referencing. So we don't have any data that speaks to that I know of. Of course, staff could be screaming right now saying, yes, we do, yes, we do. So let me ask the question and find out. But I know that we are also having some great conversations with Duke, our hospitals, really to talk about the trauma-informed care. That really gets down to, I think, what you're talking about when it comes to people being brought into the hospital that have traumatic injuries resulting from violent crime. And then really let's now provide them with services, not just physically putting them and mending them, but finding out what has led to that. So I think I hear what you're saying. So let me just ask and find out and follow up.
Yeah, I would appreciate that because we're getting some double whammies here with the pandemic and the families, you know, and it's getting closer to schools. You know, I'm really concerned about how we're going to be able to, you know, and I know you guys can't do it all on your own. You're a reactive model. So as we are exploring all of the other alternatives, I hope that we can, you know, take a look through that lens psychologically as well. Because the residents are saying, why is this happening? You know, we know what is happening, but we're not talking enough about why it's happening, which I think will lead us to what we can do and how. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Chief, I do have one question for you. You may or may not know the answer. I know when I went to Washington to the U.S. Conference of Mayors, one of the things that was talked about by a lot of panelists and just people in general at the conference was that violent crime seemed to be up all over the nation in terms of, you know, whether it was a small town or a big town, there was just some common things, gentrification, violent crime. But I'm wondering, in reference to the North Carolina, in reference to North Carolina, sometimes Durham seems to stick out, you know, in terms of the violence that is happening here, and not only here, but everywhere. But do you have a sense of what is happening? We only have like 5 metropolitan areas here in North Carolina: Fayetteville, Greensboro, Winston, Charlotte, Raleigh. Do you have any sense of where we sit among our metropolitan areas, and if you know of any trends that you see going on in those sort of in the big cities in North Carolina? Are we really so far out there that we're far behind or far ahead of everybody in terms of violence? Is our violence, you know, really up over others, or where do we sit in that space?
So as far as providing you with the actual number data, I don't have that, but what I can tell you, just some of my conversations with my colleagues, we are all feeling an increase. I think what we have though is with these shootings, the number of shootings, we are actually seeing more of that here in our city. Then, you know, when I have the conversations with my colleagues in the larger cities here, but they are seeing the same thing. We seem to be experiencing it more frequent than they are. So when we talk about quality of life issues, we talk about, you know, gang activity or involvement, you know, all of those things we share in common. We have those in common. But as far as the numbers, what do the statistics yield? I don't have that number for you, but happy to, we can have that for you.
Just wondering, Chief, because I know you all have a lot of conversations, so no need to put anything extra on your plate in that vein. Just wanted to know really what you've answered my question. All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good afternoon, Chief. So good to see you again. We've been hanging out a little bit lately. Just recently had an opportunity to share a stage with the chief for Black History Month celebration just recently, where she dominated. They were really there to see her. I was there for comic relief, but good to see you, Chief.
Good to see you.
And I want to thank my colleagues that have spoken already. Chief, firstly, just a little bit of celebration as you still get into your tenure here. You're still unpacking over there in the new building, in your new office, I should say. Firstly, you know, we're spoiled here in Durham when it comes to our police chiefs and our staff and our manager and those that work for our city. We've become accustomed in Durham to receiving national attention for a number of things. Your office is no different, whether it's testifying in front of the Senate, whether it's leading the premier Black law enforcement organization in America, or whether it's being on CNN to talk about the shortage staffing issues that face police departments around the country. So I want to congratulate you on really keeping the tradition alive and your wonderful appearance on CNN for a very serious subject. And my question is going to go to that in a minute. But secondly, also by way of celebration and also just kind of giving folk a window into what's going on sometimes behind the nuts and bolts behind the scenes in government. I want to thank people, members of our HR department here in the city, Specialist Neil and JJ Scott, and Captain Tammy Restrepo as well. Of late, I've been communicating with leaders in our Latino community here in Durham, particularly the North Carolina Congress of Latino Organizations. And one of the things that I'm going to be asking in our upcoming budget is to further compensate and reward those who have bilingual capabilities. And in doing so, Captain Restrepo there in your command did an excellent job in getting information back to me and helping out with that. So I just wanted to commend the captain to you while you're here today, which leads me to really the question in terms of our capabilities to better serve our folk. You already alluded to the pay increase that we passed. And one of the reasons why we did, well, we just needed to do it. But one of the practical impacts that we're hoping it will have is that it'll better equip us to deal with staffing issues and retention issues. And we know that things don't happen overnight. So I'm wondering do you have any sense? Clearly you can't nail this down precisely, but in your estimation, when do you think, if at all, we might start seeing some positive impact on staffing because of that repositioning of Durham to the top of the list amongst our peer cities? And I'm here with representatives from our peer cities. So I asked that in interesting company today. When do you think that's going to kick in, if that's a fair way of asking, or make a difference down the road? Because I know it takes time to staff BLETs and it takes time to, do you think that'll help? And when do you think we'll start seeing some positive return, if at all?
Well, so I will say this to you. I will say that we're really seeing that now with retention. So we have not, and I knock on wood, the number of officers that are leaving our agency right now, it certainly seems to have slowed down. I will also tell you is that the interest that we are seeing from just laterals since the pay plan was passed, there seems to be a lot more interest from laterals. So when we, it's officers that are coming from other agencies. And so we want to really capitalize on that and strike while the iron is hot. So I would say to you, I think once we start really seeing some noticeable things, whether it's filling our basic law enforcement academies or increasing the number of laterals, and really having that palpable interest again, I would say it's probably going to be at least another 6 months before I can say to you, all right, these things coupled with the kickoff of the pay plan, along with some things that we are working on in-house, we are really starting to see it. And I will tell you, just in my meetings with my deputy city manager, and then subsequent meetings that deputy city manager is having with Manager Page, they definitely have their finger on the pulse of the retention as well as the recruiting. We're having those very regular conversations and adjusting where we need to. So I feel very positive about the future. We're going through a rebranding right now, just changing, and we've asked officers what they think should be what should be our line. Like, you know, it was rise to the challenge before, so what should it be now? And we're getting a lot of interest in officers that are really actively engaged. So yes, I think we are moving in the right direction.
That's very encouraging to hear, and the lateral interest, I'm sure, is going to be there. Of course, you know, we just don't want to take anybody just because the checks are fatter. We know that a lot of Durham officers flow outward to other departments, and now that other departments may want to flow here simply because of the check, you know, we want to make sure you're up to Durham standards, and I know you will. Speaking of which, I want to ask a little bit about a question about training. Since you've been chief, I don't think you've had much opportunity to really talk about, you know, views on implicit bias training and stuff like that publicly. But one of the things we've been talking about, I've actually been part of some conversations here with the league, this thing about procedural justice versus implicit bias training. That rather than kind of, you know, tell it to the judge, you're actually starting to practice de-escalation and kind of being kind to everybody, novel concept, or patient with everybody, no matter who they are, and incorporating that into the actual training modules. And we know that Durham already is lauded throughout the state for having superior training, both for our police officers and firefighters. But I'm wondering, talk a little bit, if you can, about any tweaking or muscularizing of our training modules that you think should or might happen under your watch with respect to de-escalation, or this term now, procedural justice on the part of officers, if you would.
Yeah, so what I think is very important is that we should never continue to do things because that's the way we've always done them. And especially as it relates to how our procedures and our policies are, but also how we train. It's important that our training evolves as the work of policing does. And so, you know, I have tasked our training division with really being purposeful in not just looking at what other police departments are doing, but look at what private sectors are doing with their training, right? Because, you know, law enforcement trains a certain way, right? We look at things sometimes through a law enforcement lens, but I think the private sector, so when we talk about our SASs and our, you know, our big corporations that really talk about, you know, diversity and inclusion and bias and procedural justice and all of these things, they do have a very unique model in which they go about providing those opportunities to their staff. And I believe that we could bring something like that here. So that's being researched, and we want to stay up on the methods, the current processes, which is why this strategic plan is so very important. If we don't write it down, if we don't have a roadmap, then we're going to go off of the road. We will not get to where we need to be.
Thanks so much for that, Chief. And I look forward to, I know it's going to be groundbreaking work, and as usual, Durham will be looked to for leadership both here in the state and nationally. Finally, I'll just say this, you know, one of the things, whether it's police or fire department or sanitation, or I miss the ride-alongs. I miss being able to be out there with folks that are collecting the garbage and answering calls and stuff. And as we come out of COVID, I'm looking forward to when we get back to the days when we can do those type of things, not just with your department, with all the departments of our city. So thank you so much, Chief. Good to see you. Please,
thank you.
Our regard to the men and women under your command. Thank
I
you.
will. Thank you.
I yield back, Madam Mayor.
Councilman Williams.
Yeah, I think this may be a question for our manager, for Manager Page. How are we advertising the PAC meetings? Is that just on the manager's website?
Councilmember Williams, when you say how are we advertising the PAC meetings, are you talking about the PACs themselves, or how are we supporting?
Yeah, how are we supporting? I just want, I guess if I'm a regular resident and I want to attend the PAC meeting in our, you know, district, is that something that we advertise, or is it coming from the ground level?
So I would say that the PAC meetings have standard, meeting times. And I see Keith Chadwell coming. The Neighborhood Improvement Services Department in their engagement area provide, technical support in some ways to the PACs. All members of the PAC obviously are volunteers. They tend to have listservs and other ways to stay engaged with the residents that live in the PAC. They also, because of COVID, have had, some of the PACs have met virtually. I have been to PAC meetings that are virtual. As people become more comfortable being in person, some of them are starting to be more in person. But the advertisement, if you call it advertisement, there's probably someone behind the curtain here that has a specific answer to that. But I wanted you to know that, the PACs are led by the leaders in the community. And we are a support arm, of that program. So other staff, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Keith Chadwell, only to add to what the manager has said, Mr. Williams, there's not a very, very robust outward facing advertisement of those. It's somewhat insular in that PAC meetings have their own kinds of constituencies within the areas that they serve. And connected to the community engagement staff that's in NIS, the robustness of the advertising is within those specific districts. And there is a person assigned to each PAC from NIS to do that kind of supporting. So that they do have newsletters, they have listservs, they have fairly robust lists that associated with each group that they stay in touch with and broadly advertise. And then, for each meeting they do, there are recruitment efforts so that the folks would be reminded to attend those sessions.
Gotcha. I think I misunderstood thinking that the PACs were sponsored by the city or those were ours, but actually we just supporting. So thanks for that clarification. Charge it to me being a newbie.
You're doing fine, sir. Thank you.
All right. Any further questions for our chief? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And women of the Durham Police Department. Stay safe and well.
Thank you, ma'am. May I just take a moment of personal privilege?
Of course.
Yes, Councilmember Reese. From one community servant to another, I honor you, sir. Thank you so much for your leadership. Thank you so much for showing up and being present for our community. It's much appreciated, and wish you and your family the best of luck, and we'll see you again soon. You're not gone forever. We're just going to loan you away for just a little bit, but you'll come back.
Chief Andrews, I really appreciate that. I'm sorry that we haven't had a chance to work very closely together yet. I just have so much respect and appreciation for the way that you have come home to Durham, the way that you have rolled up your sleeves immediately and gotten to work, getting into the deep problems that we have in our city right now. I'm just in awe of the work ethic that you're displaying, and just really want to thank you for that and for coming home to us. We really needed your help, and we still need it. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for your kind words. As you said, we're not moving forever. We're moving for a little while. Hopefully there won't be a land war breaking out in Europe right before we move there. That'd be awesome. But we'll be back directly. All right. Thank you, Chief. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. And thank you, Madam Mayor. I will turn back over to you. Thank you for allowing me that.
Thank you, ma'am. Take good care of that, Chief. Stay safe and well. I see our city manager, Manager Page.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. There's always someone in the background providing closure to my circles. And I did want to let Council Member Williams know that on the city's very, very informative and robust website, I did see Beverly Thompson pop in and she popped back out. But there is within the, obviously you can get anywhere on the city's website by putting the words into the search bar. I'm looking for PACs, but built into a link that comes from the throughout our departmental layers is a web page or web link that talks about the Partners Against Crime, the purpose. There's tells what all of the districts are. All 5 districts, as well as some contact information. So if all else fails, folks can come to the city's website and type that in and can receive information about the PACs and their normal meeting schedules and those kinds of things, purpose. So I wanted to close that.
Thank you so much. And that's the link I was looking at over here, which is why I thought the city did it, but I got clarification now.
Thank you both. We now will turn our attention to our second presentation for this afternoon, and that is item number 14, which is the police satisfaction survey results. And I believe we have staff here as well, but Mr. Jason Murtada is here. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, well, it's great to be back here virtually in Durham. Last week, I went through the results of the citywide resident satisfaction survey. And today I'm going to go through the results of the police satisfaction survey. This survey was administered from mid-October to early November last year. So about a month to a month and a half before the citywide resident satisfaction survey. I just have one slide about ETC Institute. We're based in the Kansas City area, but we're a national leader in providing market research for local governments. So this is really the type of work that we specialize in. It's conducting community surveys, primarily for city and county governments. This is just a quick rundown of what I'll go through today. I'll go over the purpose and methodology of the survey. The bottom line up front are our main conclusions, and then I'll go through the major survey findings, and I'll be happy to answer any questions as well. So there are several reasons why we conduct this survey. One is to get an objective assessment of how satisfied Durham residents are with police services, and also to determine what residents feel are the top priorities for the police department. And then we're also able to measure trends from previous surveys. This is the 5th police satisfaction survey that we've administered. The most recent one before this year was a year ago, and the first year we conducted the survey was in 2016. This survey was administered by a combination of mail and online to randomly selected residents throughout the city. And that's the same methodology that we use for the citywide resident satisfaction survey. Our goal was to get at least 500 completed surveys, and we ended up with 512. And those results at the 95% level of confidence have a margin of error of plus or minus 4.2%. So essentially that means that if we conducted this survey the same way 100 times, 95 times the results would be plus or minus 4.2% from what we're reporting. So the results aren't perfect, but the margin of error is very small. These next few slides will take a look at the demographics of survey respondents. They're very similar to the resident satisfaction survey. Once again, we had a good representation based on gender, very good representation based on race and ethnicity. These numbers are right on target with the actual population of Durham based on the US Census. And then we had a good mix of different household income ranges. So here are our main conclusions from the survey. We found that most survey respondents respect, trust, and have confidence in Durham Police Department police officers. The top priorities for police services are overall efforts to prevent crime, visibility of police in neighborhoods, and how quickly police respond to emergencies. And these were the same top 3 priorities on last year's survey as well. And then top priorities for the community are the Durham Police Department, treating residents of different races and ethnicities equally, and minimizing violent crime. So first we'll look at level of satisfaction with police services. This was the first question on the survey. Here we're asking residents to rate a variety of police services. So the dark blue are those who are very satisfied, light blue satisfied. The orangish color is neutral, and we interpret that as average or meeting expectations. It's a rating of a 3 on the 5-point scale. And then the pink and red are those who are dissatisfied or very dissatisfied. So if you look at the top of the chart, most residents are satisfied with the appearance and quality of police vehicles and equipment. Most feel that police officers are professional. Most are also satisfied with the attitude and behavior of officers towards citizens. The 2 areas that have the highest levels of dissatisfaction are visibility of police in neighborhoods, which is this 4th from the bottom. A little over 30% are dissatisfied, and then efforts to prevent crime. Here we asked respondents about their interactions with police department employees. And these numbers are based on residents who have interacted or contacted the police department within the past year. So that was about a 1/4 of survey respondents. So we do have a smaller sample size for this question. But of those respondents who have interacted with police department employees, most gave very high ratings to the courtesy of employees. Most feel like they were easy to contact. And then most were also satisfied with the accuracy of the information and the assistance they were given. So I mentioned that most survey respondents respect, trust, and have confidence in police officers. 57% of survey respondents have a great deal of respect for police officers. 34% on top of that have at least some respect. So overall, over 90% of survey respondents respect Durham Police Department police officers. Most respondents say they either strongly or at least somewhat trust Durham Police Department police officers. And then most also are either very or at least somewhat confident in Durham police officers. So on the survey, we had a number of questions related to race relations. Here we asked, do you think Durham Police Department police officers stop people of certain racial or ethnic groups because they believe that these groups are more likely to commit certain types of crimes? So 38% of overall respondents said yes, 23% said no, 40% are not sure. And for this question, we broke the results out by race and ethnicity. And you can see there are a big difference in the perceptions among Black residents compared to Hispanic and white. 58% of Black residents said yes. For Hispanic and white, the number was 25%. This is a question that we've asked on previous surveys as well. The dark blue line, the results for this year's survey, the light blue is 2020. Then the orange bar are the results for the first year we conducted the survey in 2016. So in 2016, 41% of respondents felt that police officers stop people of certain racial or ethnic groups because they think they're more likely to commit crimes. That number was down to 31% on last year's survey, and now it's increased a bit up to 38%. And then for those respondents who answered yes to that question, we asked, what is the reason for your view? And you can see there are a number of reasons. A little over 50% said media reports, a little over 40% word of mouth, and 38% say it's from personal experience. Here we asked, has there ever been a specific incident where you felt discriminated against by Durham Police Department police officers because of your race or ethnic background? Overall, only 12% of respondents said yes. But again, there is a difference among Black, Hispanic, and white respondents. 26% of Black respondents said yes, 9% of Hispanic, only 2% for white respondents. We asked, do you think it's important for the makeup of the Durham Police Department to reflect the community in terms of race and ethnicity? Most respondents feel this is important. 81% said yes, only 9% no. There is, again, a bit of a difference between Black, Hispanic, and white respondents, but for all three groups, over 70% feel like it is important for the police department to reflect the community in terms of race and ethnicity. And then we asked, do you think the Durham Police Department currently reflects the community in terms of race and ethnicity? So overall, 17% said yes, 27% said no. Most respondents don't know, 56% said don't know. When you break these results out by race and ethnicity, a similar number of Black, Hispanic, and white residents all said yes, but there is a difference in those who said no versus don't know. 44% of Black respondents say they don't feel that the Durham Police Department currently reflects the community in terms of race and ethnicity, and then 41% don't know. Then for Hispanic and white residents, only 17 and 18% said no, and the majority said they don't know. We also found that respondents overall support body cameras and video surveillance. So most respondents agree that body cameras will lead to greater transparency. Most feel that body cameras will increase accountability. And then most also feel that it makes them feel better knowing that the interaction is being recorded. And these results are very similar to previous surveys. Again, the dark bar are the results for this year's survey. The light blue is last year, and the orange is 2017, which is the first year that we asked this question. We asked respondents if they favor or oppose having 24/7 video surveillance of public areas. Most respondents either strongly or somewhat favor. And these results are also similar to previous years. Here are the breakout of the results from this year, last year, and then 2016. So now we'll look at top priorities. On the very first question on the survey, we asked residents how satisfied they are with various police services. As a follow-up question, we asked which of these services should receive the most emphasis from city leaders over the next couple of years. So the top overall priority is efforts to prevent crime. That was the #1 priority in last year's survey, also #1 among Black, Hispanic, and white respondents. And then the second and third highest priorities are visibility of police in neighborhoods, and then how quickly police respond to emergencies. And those were the top priorities on last year's survey as well. So now we have the important satisfaction rating. You might remember this from the resident satisfaction survey. This analysis is based on two types of data. First, we asked residents how satisfied they are with services. And as a follow-up, we asked which of these services are the most important for the city to emphasize for the next couple of years. So the idea behind this is those areas that have that combination of lower levels of satisfaction, but at the same time, higher levels of importance should be the highest priorities. So in this case, the highest priorities, which are in this reddish color, are efforts to prevent crime, how visible police are in neighborhoods, and how quickly police are able to respond to emergencies. Other high-level priorities, kind of in the second tier priority, are efforts to cooperate with the public to address concerns, and then police outreach programs and services. And this is really a different way of looking at that same information. For this matrix, if you start to the right, those are the areas residents feel are most important. And as you move left, the level of importance gets less and less. If you start at the top, those are the areas residents are the most satisfied with. And as you move down, the level of satisfaction gets less and less. So if you look in this bottom right-hand quadrant where it says opportunities for improvement, those are the areas that have that combination of lower levels of satisfaction, but also higher levels of importance. So the top priorities are efforts to prevent crime, visibility of police in neighborhoods, and how quickly police respond to emergencies. Police outreach programs and efforts to cooperate with the public are in this bottom right-hand quadrant as well, but they're closer to the middle, so they're not quite as high of priorities as these three with the red arrows. I've got a few other findings to take a look at. We asked residents how much they agree with various statements. If you look at this top row, The majority of residents feel like the police department is trying hard to maintain good relations with the community. And if you look towards the bottom of this chart, there are definitely concerns with the police department's ability to minimize violent crime. And then if you look at this middle, there are some concerns also with treating residents of different races and ethnicities equally. And then as a follow-up to that previous question, we asked which two of these should receive the most emphasis from city leaders over the next 2 years. The top priority is treating residents of different races and ethnicities equally. And the second highest priority is minimizing violent crime. So here we asked, do you think Durham has enough police officers? This is a question we've asked every year we've conducted the survey. This year, 10% of respondents say they feel Durham has enough police officers. You can see that number is consistent with previous surveys. The one thing that's different this year is 60% of respondents say they don't feel that Durham has enough police officers. In previous years, that number was around 40%. This year, 30% say they don't know. And that number before had been around 50%. So more people who before had been saying they don't know if Durham has enough police officers, now some of them are saying no. And then we asked residents if they personally feel safe in Durham. 12% say they strongly agree that they feel safe in Durham. That's pretty similar to previous surveys. 40% agree, and that number is pretty comparable to 2016, but down pretty significantly from last year's survey. And then here we ask residents about the areas of greatest and least concern. The areas in red are the greatest concerns, the blue are the least concerns. So the biggest concerns are gun violence, murder, gangs, and then violent crime. So just a quick recap, we saw that residents respect, trust, and have confidence in Durham Police Department police officers. The top overall priorities for police services are efforts to prevent crime, visibility of police in neighborhoods, and how quickly police respond to emergencies. And then top overall community priorities include treating residents of different races and ethnicities equally and minimizing violent crime. So that's everything that I had. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you so much. I will open it up for questions from my colleagues. All right. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Jason, good to see you again.
Yeah, great to be here again, yes.
We've been hanging out quite a bit lately. Thank you for the survey. Number of questions, just thanks, and I just maybe a couple of observations. First off, I'm glad to see the trends and the perceptions of most of our residents. You know, this is tricky. I'm a mayor pro tem and elected official, but I'm also a Black man in this country, and there are some views about police that are almost hardwired to me, that are downloaded in me. I've had some interactions growing up that to this day still shape me and still impact me. And there's this tension in operating in this governing space here in Durham between that view of police overall and experiences with policing and trying to make informed decisions about the Durham Police Department and the specific data points that I'm experiencing as a local elected official. Because sometimes I think, you hear police and it's very easy for me to kind of have a composite of all of the worst things, take Ferguson and take Rampart Division in the 80s of LAPD, take Boston in their worst days, New York Police Department in the 70s, and kind of smash that all together. And that's the police in your mind, this kind of composite. And then you get to local government governance and there's almost sometimes there's a temptation to govern almost viscerally based upon that composite, that nationalized indiscriminate composite, as opposed to looking at what's actually going on in the area that you've taken an oath to take care of. And with that, there's things here to take note of. I think there's things here to be encouraged by in terms of our police department, but that didn't happen accidentally. That didn't happen overnight. And right now, there was a lot of work going on in Durham, going back to the 80s in terms of addressing our police department, issues of the police department, but particularly there was a groundswell in the mid 2000s with organizations like FADE, the FADE Coalition that brought together a number of disparate organizations and various organizations in our city to do work to reform Durham's police department, whether it was minimizing concentration on small amounts of marijuana, collecting traffic stop data, encouraging implicit buying, requiring implicit bias training, other things like CIT training, all of these things that groups did and activists did that directly impacted the culture of Durham's police department. And I would dare say that some of these numbers that are trending in the right direction didn't happen, organically or naturally. It's because a lot of folk in the city did a lot of work, and we made good hires at the chief level, as well as reflected today, folk who weren't afraid to engage and change the culture. And while we are not perfect in Durham, we certainly have done a lot of work. And that work didn't happen in City Hall. That work happened because residents came together and said, we demand that policing be done according to our values here in Durham and in a way that respects all people. And that work continues to go on. So I just want to commend those that are doing the work, not just in the department, but in the community as well, in City Hall and outside of City Hall. This is very, very useful to me, not as a Black man making actual real decisions based upon data and not just my emotional, visceral, very real and very relevant and very present experiences as a Black man in this country with police, but now as a Black man vested temporarily with a little bit of power in the city to make decisions based upon data and to continue to insist that the work be done to make this the best department that it can be, because it's not going anywhere. So we need to insist that it be the best in the state and indeed in the country. So thanks so much for this data. It's going to be very helpful as we move forward in governing the city. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right. Any other questions for Ms. Murtado?
Mayor, I just want to say thank you for the for this presentation. The city has spoken, and I think it's now on us to make moves. But this is loud and clear, And I'm glad to see this before us, and I'm looking forward to, as an elected official, doing something with it. So thank you, Mr. Murtado. Pleasure to virtually meet you.
Thank you so much. We've enjoyed hearing from you today and greatly appreciate all the work and effort of you and whoever helped in this matter. I'm sure it's always takes a team, and we certainly commend our police department and our residents for taking part. So thank you so much. Stay safe and well.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Madam Manager, unless I am mistaken, we're at our next order of business, which would be to settle our agenda before going into closed session. Would that be correct?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am ready to present to you the agenda. For consent, I have items 1 through 5, items 7 through 12, and item 18. On the general business agenda, I have item 6. And for the general business agenda public hearing, items 15 and 16.
All right, I'm now ready to entertain a motion to settle our agenda.
Move to settle. Councilmember Williams made the motion. I'll second.
All right, All right, Councilman Williams made the motion. Mayor Pro Tem seconded it. Madam Clerk, if you call our roll for the vote.
Mayor O'Neill,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Middleton,
I vote aye.
Councilmember Freeman, Councilmember Johnson, Councilmember Reese,
He has stepped away to.
okay, and Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Thank
Can you
you.
hear me now?
Madam Clerk, I don't know if you captured it, but it looked like the Councilmember Freeman did indeed unmute. And Councilmember Johnson, you unmuted, but we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Aye.
And can you hear me now?
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you.
That vote passes unanimously. And I think we're now ready to entertain a motion to move to our closed session. And we will say.
Madam Mayor, I think we took, did we vote did we actually vote at the beginning of the meeting already to go?
Sorry about that. All right. So is there, if there's nothing else that would come before us this afternoon, we will say so long for a few minutes and move into closed session at this time.